finally race week in 2025 as we make our way to the Australian GP at Albert Park, a track that holds so many unforgettable moments and really delivers on drama every single time we go there. Fernando Alonso's big crash where he thought he might not even survive was just one of many moments here at the green and yellow track. Spectators invaded the track in 2023, and overall the GP itself was just chaos, especially the last 3 or 4 laps where we had 3 red flags in the race. K-Mag at some point hitting the wall, Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon colliding together, and a reset to finish off the last lap of the race. This GP has not been very friendly to its home drivers like Daniel Ricciardo in 2014, where he did finish on the podium, technically in second, but his car exceeded the maximum fuel flow, and that disqualified him from the GP. So actually since 1983 with John Smith was the last time an Australian was on the podium in Australia. 2024 gave us Carlos Sainz as the winner after appendicitis surgery, so it just seems like this track holds very fond memories, and it's never boring. It's one of those tracks where not too many overtakes happen because of the layout, but we always get a storyline or two by the end of the race. It's undergone some changes. Turn 6 and Turn 7 have been notable corners in these past couple of years because of the big George Russell incident that happened last year, which should not have been a penalty for Fernando, and Alex Albon crashing in Turn 6 now 2 years in a row in 23 and 24, with him actually going in Logan's car for the race and putting Logan on the sideline, which probably gave us a hint of what was going to happen somewhere towards the midseason as we saw with Logan. So they have actually made it a more smoother transition going into that very high speed corner, and it's been changed now to a negative curve. The adjustment removes the transition from negative to positive, which might not look like much, at least for us, but it should make a pretty big difference in the race. And possibly less collisions will happen here with the wall. But we always get our previews for these tracks going over what type of compounds we're gonna have. We're gonna go from C3 to C5, which is the softest compounds we have in the season. And we already have a good idea of what the C3 to the C5 is because of Bahrain. We've seen the testing. And overall, the difference between these tires isn't too much. The traction's gonna be a 2. It's also a very front-oriented track, which should help the cars that struggle with rear end instability, and overall the balance just not being that good in these cars. Tire stress is a 3, but it really depends on how hot it is. The track itself is not really known for destroying the tires, but last year we did see a 2-stop, which is pretty rare in Australia. And considering it's the same compounds as we saw last year, with some changes to the PSI, I think it's very possible we see a 2-stop again, unless we do get some weather, which is very possible right now on race day to get some rain. Now downforce is a 3 here on the track. It could change it between a 2 or a 3, especially with these cars now going into the last regulation period. These floors just generate so much downforce, so the rear wing has become less important in GPs like this where straight line speed matters a lot. And lastly, track evolution is also a 3. These are the most important parts to know about the circuit information and really our preview of Melbourne. And I have seen some of you guys comment, it's Melbourne, right? Is that how you guys say it? I'm gonna try it for the rest of the video. But I have also done something different as our track around the lap. I did it live. Tell me if you guys enjoy it like this. It's a bit different to that of last year, but I think you guys will have a good amount of fun with it. So here is the best lap that you can get around Melbourne done by me. All right, let's do a lap around Australia because obviously I am the fastest and I can show you exactly how it's done. Oops. You're gonna ignore the invalidated lap time, catch cars, and not if you... Okay. All right, we're attempting this first try yet again. Get up to 8, use the black dashboard again. Do not lock up like me and go off the track and spin off. Okay. All right, let's actually get a proper launch into our start finish line. Melbourne, I think that's how you guys say it. You guys have corrected me before. All right, let's do a lap around Australia for the first time. This is my first try, of course. Okay, hit the DRS. We're going to go on the start-finish line. You're going to want to stay as left as possible, and we'll get a killer lap. So look for that black dashboard line to set up your braking zone. You want to stay around 4 or 5. I went down to 4 because I'm slow, but get up to 7th and 8th. No confidence right now. Big braking zone. Get close to that black dashboard as your braking meter, really. Use a little bit of that curb. You're going to lift a bit so you don't hit too much of this curb, but not like I did. Take a little curb here. You'll use that outside line. This has been reprofiled now. Shift down a couple of times. Take this beautifully just so you get that invalidated lap time. Now, this is the biggest straight here. It's going to be a DRS zone. I think it's going to be where most of our overtakes happen. And a lot of speed is used here. Overtake button will be spammed very much here. We're going to then go into the high-speed sector, one of the best parts of Australia's lap. Oh, and nail it like I did. Now, going into this braking zone, very tricky. You want to... Oh, I think I did it a little early. Take a bit of curb, flat out as soon as possible. Lift a little bit here. Take this partially. Another big braking zone. A lot of lockups happen here and drivers go off. And then we finish off our lap pretty much flat out. Try not to take this curb, but that will be a lap around Australia. Yeah, done by the fastest driver in real life. And now that we're done with that, we can finally go into our predictions for the first race of 2025. And yes, I have also changed it. Last year I talked about worst and best teams and then my top 5. You guys wanted something different, so I'm giving you guys something different. We're going to do the worst drive, best drive, an unchained driver, which kind of is going to be like a wild take, just wanted to name it something different, surprise team for the race, and yet again, a top 5 by the end. Now it's going to be really random going into here. We just had 2025 testing. It did give us some information, but it's not like it's really set in stone what's going to happen here, especially if rain comes in, but I'm just going to base it off of my first feelings and thoughts going into this GP. For my worst drive, something is tingling about Esteban Ocon being the worst here, having the worst drive in Australia. It's not been a track that I've really seen him do super well on in the last couple of years. It's always his teammate outshining him here. And I just get the feeling this is really going to be about how I feel. There isn't really too much thought being put into who's the driver and why not. But Australia, Ocon, not clicking for me. For the best drive, and it probably gives you a hint of the top 5, but it doesn't give you an idea of where I expect him to be. So for me, I think the best drive is going to be Leclerc, which gives you a subtle hint of where he could possibly place and what's my opinion of the SF25, at least from testing that we've seen. Now my wild take, the driver that I think is gonna have the best performance where we least expect it, I think it's gonna be Bortoleto. I think he beats out Hulk in the first race. I just have a lot of confidence for the Brazilian. It's a driver that I like. I think he's super underrated in comparison to the other rookies that we've had. He's kind of being overlooked, but it's because he's driving a green and black car, and we know that those are very slow. So just like worst drive, it's all about feeling here, as it is just the beginning of the season. It's going to be Gabriel for me, the unchained driver in Australia. And the surprise team, a lot of people are downplaying them. I think Aston is going to be a point-scoring team here and do pretty well with their car. Even a lot of media outlets have said they can't even judge Aston after the testing. I do believe this to be the case as well. I think the car is faster than it's been put out there. Some people have them ranked as 9th in testing. Yeah, I just don't see it. I think the car is going to be a bit better than people are putting it out there to be. So I expect some points for the team in green that's not lime green. That car ain't going to score anything. Now the top 5. Traditionally, like last year, we'll go from 5 to 1. And quite a shocker, I'm going to say something right before I get into these top 5. If it rains, flat out for me, I'm just going to say Max is going to win. I don't think in the dry it will be the same scenario because for me, top 5, Max is fit in the dry. If it rains, you can never count a guy out. No matter the car, maybe even if you put him in a Sauber, he'd probably still score on the podium. So I do believe for Max, if it rains, he wins. If it's dry, which is what I'm basing this top 5 off of, he's P5 for me, and following right after him, it's going to be Lewis in P4. It's going to take him a little bit of time to adapt. I still believe the Ferrari to be very quick, but I don't have him ahead of Charles for this race. And on the podium, I'm going to tell you, it's McLaren, and there is a Ferrari obviously laying in there. We haven't named them yet. I do believe these to be the fastest cars going into Australia because of it being front-oriented. I think it's going to help the SF25. Do I believe it's going to be an accurate representation of how the car is going to be from track to track? Not sure. I've heard a couple of negative things about it, so we'll have to see later on in the season and more representative tracks. But for this case, I do have Oscar at P3. He will finally be an Australian on the podium since 1983. I don't think he's going to beat Leclerc. Leclerc is going to be P2 for me, and I believe Lando is going to have an excellent start to the season. Something is telling me that this is going to be his year, and I do believe he's going to start in P1 as well. Whether or not that's going to be after lap 1, we'll have to see, because that's where his biggest problems lie in those race starts. And I think the Ferrari is going to surprise us in a good way. I think it's going to be close, but Lando will win if it's dry. So many factors at play here, and still it's really random. These predictions should get better as the season goes on. when we see them in China, that'll be a better track to see where these cars are representatively rather than Australia, because the tire wear is tricky, and every season, the way that the top 10 ends every race here, whether it's 24 or 23 or 22, it never seems to be the same order we get for the next couple of GPs when the tarmac is different and overall the track layout is different. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on it in the comments below. Let me know what you guys thought about this preview and predictions. Did you guys like this new little format that I did? Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world, and peace.